This episode of the Rural Roots Canada podcast is brought to you by Kubota. When hay season hits, every hour in the field counts, and Kubota hay tools are built to make the most of them. With mowers, tedders, rakes, balers, wrappers, mergers, and more, Kubota has the equipment to keep your operation moving. Head to Kubota.ca and click Agriculture to explore the full lineup. Welcome to the Rural Roots Canada podcast. I'm Tim Parent, joined by Craig Lester. And Craig, we always tend to talk about the weather, and I know we're not a weather podcast, but let's be honest, weather and ag go hand in hand. And it has been a crazy week. As we are recording this, the wind outside of my house here in Calgary is insanely strong. It's blowing my barbecue.
I've seen pictures from northern Alberta this morning, and this is nothing compared to what they're seeing up north.
I know. I saw
everywhere. It's
up in
crazy.
Fort Mac. I saw some video of like a highway up in Fort Mac just completely snow covered.
Yeah, same thing up in the Riley area, east of Edmonton. It's pretty crazy right now. The roads are not in great shape, and here we are in April. And I know that you always get wild and wacky weather here in Alberta based on where we're located, but this has even been a lot of farmers I've talked to have just been kind of beside themselves, wondering when the yo-yo weather effect is going to end, especially those who are dealing with calving or those who are trying to get out into the fields and get things started for seeding. It's just been really a hard start to whatever's going on.
Yeah, and it's the inconsistency with the weather that's difficult, because one day it's 20, then the next day it's 3, and then it's up to 14, and then it's -2 with blizzard-like conditions, and then it's so all over the map. And of course, ruralrootscanada.com. We always have weather updates from our meteorologist, David Spence. So again, ruralrootscanada.com. Every Monday and Thursday, we update our weather forecasts with David. So be sure to check them out if you need to see what's going on in your particular neck of the woods. A couple of other stories to bring up from this week, particularly this one affects canola processors and producers in Regina and in the Saskatchewan area specifically. Cargill Canada says its new canola processing plant in Regina is now open. That's good news. It expands domestic processing capacity and better market access for Western Canadian farmers. This new facility in Regina can process up to 1 million metric tons of canola annually. And certainly that's great for increasing the local demand and allowing the crop to be processed here in Canada into all those products that we can get out of canola and for renewable fuel as well, high-protein meal for animal feed. This particular plant will serve growers across Saskatchewan and into western Manitoba. Cargill, of course, already does have additional canola processing facilities in Camrose, Alberta, and Clavitt, Saskatchewan. So some good news there for canola farmers in Saskatchewan and in Manitoba, and certainly something that is definitely needed. The other story this week that was making the rounds and was picking up some traction was a new private members bill that's being proposed in Ottawa to speed up the approval of ag products here in the country by relying more heavily on decisions made in other countries. It's Bill C-273, or the Facilitating Agricultural Regulatory Modernization Act. And what it'll do is amend several federal laws, including the Feeds Act, the Fertilizers Act, the Seeds Act, and the Pest Control Products Act. And essentially, it's proposing a system that allows products already approved in at least 2 trusted jurisdictions to receive provisional approval in Canada within 90 days of a complete application. Now, when you're talking about trusted jurisdictions, we're talking about places like the EU, the UK, the United States, Australia, New Zealand. And what this will do is speed up the process and at least get provisionally approved or registered if these feeds, fertilizer, supplements, whatever it might be, meet the foreign approval threshold. And then there's going to be, of course, a Canadian science-based review, and that can just get the process. So it gets it going a little faster. And then when they do their own research and science-based reviews, then it'll be out there. And obviously, a lot of groups, are in support of this. Fertilizer Canada, the Grain Growers of Canada, the wheat growers, Canadian canola growers have all come out and said this is an important step towards modernizing Canada's regulatory system and reducing a lot of the red tape that has impeded the adoption of innovative agricultural products. So those were a couple of the big stories this week in the ag world. And Craig, our intrepid reporter at World Agri-Tourism Canada, Olivia, was out on the road and is out on the road right now, and she's doing some traveling and meeting up with people all across the country and talking ag with them, which is fantastic. But she did have a discussion with Charlotte Wasilyk at Chatsworth Farm. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so obviously, as everyone may remember, World Agri-Tourism Canada was at Chatsworth Farm earlier this summer for Alberta Open Farm Days. What a wonderful operation and farm and family, and they are very passionate about agriculture and telling agriculture's story. It comes through in everything that they do in regards to this, and they've been doing at this for a number of years, and now they're being recognized for it internationally. They were the winner of the Best Agritourism and Community-Led Initiative for World Agri-Tourism Day at this conference, the Global Agritourism Network, which is absolutely fantastic. That was the 19th World Agri-Tourism Awards, and it celebrates the true spirit of togetherness in rural development, and that was awarded to Charlotte Wasilyk at Chatsworth Farm. So congratulations to them, and as we were talking about, Olivia had a chance to sit down with Charlotte and discuss this awesome award.
To begin, can you tell me a little bit about Chatsworth Farm and what you do there?
Our farm was started in 1994 by my parents, and for the most part, when they started out, it was commercial cow-calf operation, and then they added some poultry in there. And after my brothers and I came along, there were a few different animals that we had, goats and rabbits, but it's morphed into what our farm is today. So the beef cattle are still a huge component, but we've also added sheep, we have pigs, we have a lot of poultry, ducks, geese, chickens, and turkeys. And as a farming family, we just go about our day doing the farming thing, but we've also branched out a little bit into agritourism and being a little bit more public facing, which a lot of farms are doing now because it's so easy with social media and having a phone in your pocket. And that's given us the chance to do a lot of really neat things that I think as farmers, we don't necessarily realize that we can do. And for us, that's being part of events like Alberta Open Farm Days or hosting school kids at our farm and connecting with people around the world about what agriculture and farming looks like, as particularly on a farm in Alberta.
And you were recently recognized through the World Agri-Tourism Awards. Could you tell me a little bit more about this?
Yes, it's actually one of two awards that we're shortlisted for. The one that you're referencing, we are actually the winner of it, which I'm super pleased about. I'm really excited, and it's through the Global Agritourism Network, and they have their World Agri-Tourism Awards. I had to wake up at 3:30 a.m. I think to do the final round of presentations because of course it's global, and the meeting was hosted in India. So for them it was, I don't know what time it was. I think it was 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So I had to wake up at 3:30.
Dedication.
And just give a final presentation on what our event is and what we do for agritourism, and then also ask or answer the judges' questions. And then I got to hear some of the other nominees who were within our category and then in some of the other categories. I didn't get to hear them all because I did go back to bed since we were lambing, and I had to get back up in a couple of hours. But I guess a week and a half ago, I got an email that said we're the winner and we're the category in the best agritourism in a community-led initiative, which is especially what our Alberta Open Farm Days, that's the main focus. And then everything else we do, it's just involving the community with whether it's our direct local town or county or something a little bit further away.
And when you first heard about this award recognition, what did this mean to you?
It really goes to show that agritourism can compete on a higher level, especially the one for the other award, which is the Canadian Event Awards, and we're a finalist in that one, and the final award presentation will be at the end of this month. But for me, having, and I like to say small in quotations, a little small farm event being recognized nationally and globally is really powerful and incredible. And this week is actually in Canada National Tourism Week. And when people think about tourism, they think about really big music festivals like Coachella is going on right now, things like that. What else am I thinking of? Just people going to the mountains, camping, even things like the Calgary Stampede, because obviously that's got a whole lot of agriculture, but it's on this incredibly massive global stage. But when you think about visiting a farm, people don't necessarily think of that as tourism or even agritourism, but it really is. And people are now taking advantage of that so much because there's so many people within Canada and across the globe who are just dying to see what farming and agriculture looks like. And we can give them that opportunity and add diversification to our farm that leads to economic development within our communities, and that builds and creates stronger communities in rural areas.
So for these actual awards, were you recognized for more so like a broader, thing that you do, or was it like your specific open farm day?
For the World Agri-Tourism Award, it was a bit more broad, so it's anything that you're doing. So I included our farm tours that we do, whether they're virtual or the smaller in-person ones, working with our local town. We collect pumpkins, we partner with them for the community gardens and take all of the spent vegetables and weeds that all of the gardeners put in our tubs, and we collect them, working with our local cheesery, taking the whey that's the byproduct of the cheese and feeding it to our pigs. And then Open Farm Days does play a big role in what we do for agritourism because it's such a big day for us. But the World Agri-Tourism Award, that encompassed everything that we do, whereas the Canadian Event Awards, that is solely Open Farm Days. And for me, that one is really special because it was a rigorous application. Both of them were self-submitted, and for the Canadian Event Awards, it's judged by a very large panel of incredibly knowledgeable and skilled industry professionals within events. But they are very good at weddings, they're very good at conferences, they're very good at galas, but they don't know agriculture. And so I had to, and Alberta Grains, who is also one of the finalists, and they're actually one of our sponsors of Open Farm Days, we have to take what we do and explain everything at another level, because the process of taking an animal to the butcher and bringing that meat back, labeling it, getting it all ready, moving animals from one pasture to another, those aren't things that generally happen in events that these event professionals would understand. So it's really going above and beyond and getting them to appreciate and understand the level of intention and thought that goes into this event. And it's within that one, we are the only event recognized outside of Edmonton, Calgary, and Banff. And then within our category, we're up against major festivals in major cities. So that is really special to me. And as someone who's worked in events, and that's my background, this is something that I'm incredibly proud of.
Wow, that's really interesting. I never knew that it was up against like different events that like weren't related to agriculture, and like you mentioned, it is a little bit more difficult because a lot of people don't know a whole lot about agriculture, and that extra step in having to explain it to them definitely created a challenge for you.
Because another thing is we do sheep shearing, so making sure that we're picking sheep that are not the ones that are pregnant at the time, so they have to live through the hot summer up until August, or that they're nursing babies, and then making sure that those sheep stay dry beforehand because you can't shear wet sheep. So all of those little bits and pieces that those industry professionals within events would have no clue about. So really taking the time and explaining things and showing the complexity that goes into an event that just happens on our farm, which seems so simple, but in the grander scheme of things, it's a full-on production. And I love doing it, and I love that people can see how special it is.
And is this your first time entering for either of these awards, or have you entered them before?
This is the first time.
Oh, wow.
It was a lot of work, especially for the Canadian one. It was a rigorous process getting all of the information and paperwork that they needed, but I have all of that. It was just formatting it and getting it all compiled. And then the World Agri-Tourism one was a little bit less of an application process. And it was fun too because it ties into the conference that I'm going to. That's the Global Agritourism Conference, which is happening in June. And that's actually where the award ceremony will be. So I get my award in Scotland, and I've never been. So I'm super
Wow.
excited.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
This podcast is brought to you by Kubota Canada.
If you make hay, you know what's really in charge, the weather. So when you have a good window, it's go time, and you need equipment that helps you move fast, stay consistent, and avoid downtime. This episode is sponsored by Kubota Canada hay tools. From disc mowers and conditioners to tedders, rakes, mergers, round balers, wrappers, and more, it's a lineup built around the stuff that pays you back in season. That means clean cutting, terrain adaptability, and durability to go the distance. And because reliability isn't optional, Kubota backs it up with Canadian commitment. More than 50 years in Canada, plus a dealer network that's locally owned and ready to help when the season doesn't wait. That kind of dealer support means you're never far from people who understand the unique conditions your operation faces. And for extra peace of mind, all Kubota hay tools are backed by a 2-year factory warranty. Kubota Canada. Find the link in the show notes for more.
I'm going to ask you a little bit about the Open Farm Day event that you have at your farm. What did that day look like for you?
Oh, the first time that we hosted Alberta Open Farm Days in 2020 would look incredibly different to what our Open Farm Days last year in 2025 looked like. But at the core, it's all about getting people to come out to the farm and experience what we do, showing them the animals. For me, making the animals the star is really important, especially as a farm that does farm to table, because that's what customers are wanting to connect with and purchase, and they want to understand that piece. So during last year's Open Farm Days, visitors arrived, whether they were coming from Calgary or Edmonton, or we even had some visitors who were from Germany and Wales who were visiting family. So they came as well. So as people arrived, you were met by our incredible volunteers who are the horsepower behind what we do. We couldn't host such a good event without them. And then they either hopped on a little people mover or a horse-drawn wagon, and that was going around all throughout the day. It would drop people off at the main yard, and then they could go and take a look at cooking demonstrations, which we had 4 chefs cooking a variety of different proteins. So our beef, our lamb, our pork, and then doing a butchery demo. And all of the meat that was cooked at the demos was born and raised on our farm. And then visitors could pop over to our little pop-up shop, buy the exact cuts, and then grab a recipe card that we designed with our chefs so that those visitors could take what they learned and what they bought and what they tasted home with them to make that exact recipe at home. We had sheep shearing, equine demos, and for me, it's really important to tie everything together. So everything has a connection, a purpose. It's all symbiotic. So our sheep shearer is actually our sheep shearer who's, we've had her come out for the past 2 years to just shear our sheep as our regular farming practice. Our equine clinician is a neighbor of ours, and she's trained my one horse, and she'll be training another one this year for me. And then we had a beautiful artisan market, local vendors from as far away as Strathmore, Alberta, as close to Vermilion. So just about 15 minutes from our farm, all the way up to 5 hours from our farm, came out to sell what they make and what they grow and what they create. And that just adds such a vibrancy and a life, whether it was a tallow moisturizer or locally distilled spirits, and everything in between, cupcakes, copper jewelry. We also do community partners, so they are part of our engagement as well. So that's one of the community things that we do for Open Farm Days. So connecting with groups like the Alberta SPCA, the Derwent Fire Department. We had a research student present one of her poster presentations about, it was called Forgotten Felines, and it was about farm cats and the study that she was doing on farm or barn cats. So giving those groups and individuals a chance to share their mandates, their research, their organization to highlight what they're trying to do within the ag and the rural communities. Those are really special things. We had food trucks. We had lots of really wonderful little activities, whether it was just a sandbox for the kids. We had a little wagon train with animals that we built out of rain barrels and also mineral tubs that had little animal faces on them. So the kids got to ride around in that all day. We did machinery demonstrations showing people how we make small square bales. And then the biggest piece of our open farm days are the guided farm tours, where I take groups, whether they're about 100 people, usually the smaller ones are around 35 people as we get to the end of the day, and showing people what our farmyard actually looks like, talking about all the different animals. One of the things that we do, that we started out doing our very first year, and we do it every single year, is hatching out baby chicks so that
wow.
they hatch out just a day or two before open farm days. So they're big enough, but still incredibly little and incredibly cute. And anybody who wants to hold them, which is pretty much all the participants on the tour, we all sit in a semicircle and pass around the chicks so they get to hold them. And then I have to literally drag people away from that and continue on with the rest of the tour, showing them the sheep and the cattle and the pigs and talking about different feeds, so hay versus straw, and showing them bulls versus cows and all of the things. So it's a really full day. It's a lot of fun to host. It's a lot of work to put on, but it's really gratifying to see how many people come out. Last year we had 650 people come to our farm, and it doesn't matter if we'll have visitors who've never been on a farm before, never touched a horse before, and then we'll have our neighbors come out who've been farming for 5 generations. So you really get a really broad spectrum of people who come out, because it is such a fun day no matter where you are within agriculture or outside of it.
And, you just mentioned about how you have people that are very familiar with agriculture and people who have never really seen or had anything to do with it. What would you say is like one of the main things that you're hoping people will take away from this whole experience?
Just getting a better understanding of what farmers do, and even as, say, maybe grain farmers are really good at planting their crops, but they don't always know as much about livestock, especially if they haven't had them in decades, or maybe they didn't have them growing up. So even they learn a thing or two, and they mention that to me, and that's really nice, because it just gives a whole broader understanding and knowledge of what farming can look like. One thing that people don't realize, even if you are in farming, because not a lot of people have pigs anymore, is that the gestation for a sow is 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days. And people always kind of get a kick out of that, just because it's a fun little bit of trivia. So just getting people to really appreciate what agriculture can be. And even for those who are within agriculture and they might see it as just the thing that they do all day, and they know that it's really special and really important, they don't always get to see others appreciating agriculture. So they get to see those newbies to farming really have a fantastic time, because the more that we can share what we're doing and how we're doing it, the more that the general public can understand and appreciate and even sympathize with us, depending on what we're going through. And that's really key.
And what aspect of your open farm day, or even just like the broader work that you do you think stands out to the judges?
I think for me, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Again, tying every little piece of what I do, especially for open farm days, together. So even down to, we had rock painting at our open farm days. The rocks came from our fields, and we washed them up and got them all clean and not dusty, so that kids could paint them and then take them home. So everything is tied together, and really thinking about how you can take the everyday thing that you do on a farm and make it special. And I think, especially in North America, definitely in Western Canada, agritourism is still just emerging. It's still this almost unknown thing that a few farms are doing here and there, but it's really not well known yet. Whereas when I go over to Scotland, agritourism is massive. It is almost on the same level as just farming itself, because they're limited by what they can do with their space, and land is just like anything, land is finite, but it's even more finite there. So they're having to diversify, and agritourism is the way to be able to do that. It allows farms to be more sustainable and to be more financially feasible, and also just adding to and really just capturing the demand for what so many people are wanting. So I think we're going to be getting to that more in Canada now, as people are recognizing how important it is to get people to connect with farms and just take advantage of, again, their desire to learn and want to know more.
And speaking of learning, you do a lot of different educational videos. I actually didn't even realize that this was you, but the other day, your one with the lamb jacket came up on my own Instagram. What got you started? Yeah, what got you started with that?
Just taking advantage of social media and using it and having fun with it, because again, a lot of people don't realize. Today I posted one about a placenta from one of my ewes, and people just think it's really neat. And whether you're within agriculture, a friend of mine who's in Strathmore, she's calving out a bunch of cows right now, and everyone is really familiar with how big a cow placenta is. But she said, "Oh, I love how cute and tiny the little sheep one is." And it's very true, because compared to the placenta of a cow, a sheep one is very cute and tiny. It's just sharing what our everyday is like, because it's the type of thing that most people don't get to experience. And it's a lot of fun. And again, I have my phone with me all the time. And I have fun doing it. And I think the opportunities have just grown in terms of what I've been sharing. It really creates special connections with our customers and just anyone who's following us. And it just adds some really fun things out to the internet, because I love watching what other farmers are doing, whether it's within Canada or in the UK or in Australia, and seeing what agriculture is like across the globe. And that makes us better farmers, and it makes us better at sharing what we do with our customers and consumers.
And finally, what's next for you in the farm? I know you mentioned the conference, but do you have anything else coming up, or anything else that you would like to share?
Well, right now we're just about done lambing. I have one ewe left to lamb, and then from there we are really lucky. We got a good amount of snow this winter, and I'm looking out my window and I still have a lot of snow on the pasture. So we're looking forward to some really great grazing for all the animals. We added a new dugout last year because water was really limited for us. So I'm hoping that dugout is full. I actually can't get out there because there is so much snow right now. But moving the animals out to pasture, I'm thinking I want to increase my sheep flock a little bit. And then taking all that knowledge that I've learned from the conference in Scotland and seeing if I can apply it and how I can apply it here. We're taking a break from Open Farm Days, or we're pausing it for this year, because I'm part of the Canadian Cattle Young Leaders Program through the Canadian Cattle Association. So I'm doing a mentorship through that. So between the conference, which the mentorship is kind of part of it, it's part of my learning. Just taking a pause from Open Farm Days this year to be able to really commit myself and give myself to all of the things that I want to do, so that next year's and years future can be even more incredible and special and memorable.
That was Charlotte Wasilyk, and Olivia Taylor obviously was the one carrying out the interview. Thank you so much to Charlotte for taking time to do this, and congratulations to you and your family on this incredible award.
That Open Farm Days that we were at was fantastic. It was it was a great experience for me. I hadn't really participated in one prior, and Charlotte made us feel so welcome there, and the facility that she runs is just top notch. And we had a great time up there and met a lot of great people, and had some stories to share.
Yeah, and I mean, as the award says, it's community led, and that was what the real feeling was there. not every Alberta Open Farm Days is done as a community. It's done as individuals will do it sort of thing. But this one was very much like they opened their doors so that other farmers and other people producing food could come in and take part in their day. So it brought a whole bunch of members of the community together, and then they obviously welcome members of the public in to see everybody all at one location to make it convenient for everyone. So it was just an amazing event.
And again, congratulations to Charlotte Wasilyk and her family at the Chatsworth Farm up in Vermilion. That's it for us this week. Thanks again to Kubota for sponsoring this episode. Choosing the right equipment for your hay operation is a big decision, so Kubota's dealer network is there to help you get it right. Whether you're looking at mowers, balers, or a complete hay tool setup, your local Kubota dealer can walk you through the options. Head to kubota.ca and click Find a Dealer to connect with an expert near you. For Craig Lester, I'm Tim Parent. Have a great week.